William Ruto, and one of them seeking that Raila Odinga is denied audience before the 7 judges, obviously owing to what transpired at the Bomas of Kenya. There's our discussion tonight. We're looking at the petition, and particularly the one filed by Raila Odinga as the aggrieved party in this case, and we'll be looking at these issues raised in the petition, together with Wakili Stephen Mogaka, who is now the MP-elect for West Mugirango in Nyamira County, and also Wakili Edward Mureu, the MP-elect for the singing constituency of Gatanga in Murang'a County. Both of you are welcome, gentlemen. Karibuni sana.
So much.
Obviously, let's just begin with the general view of the petition. Wakili Mogaka, what do you think about the petition? The 8 of them.
No, the 8, did you say 9?
They're actually 9.
They are, I want to call them 8.5 because the 9th is really supposed to be a cross petition. My immediate response to the petitions is that this is the best thing for Kenya because it presents an opportunity for doing an audit of the elections that we conducted. And it also gives an opportunity for our Supreme Court, which has developed a very rich jurisprudence on presidential elections, and therefore jurisprudence on how decisions are taken with the other subordinate courts. I say first that this is a great opportunity for Kenyans to reflect and audit what we have done. And it is also a very good opportunity that this country has matured in our electoral democracy, that we are able to resolve our electoral disputes in a civic manner. And for that alone, I want to put hats off for every petitioner who thought that they have a grievance and who have sought that grievance be resolved in a pacific manner. And the rest we will be dealing with, but I also ask the country to pray for the 7 judges of the Supreme Court to have Solomonic wisdom when they are presiding over this yet momentous case in the history of Kenyan democracy. I do think that we have great things, great jurisprudence, great decisions that are going to emanate from these petitions. And above all, let me also thank the people of West Mugirango who found it fit to elect me as their MP-elect for the next 5 years. And I want to assure them that we will not let down the constituency, we will not let down the country, and we will help this country go in the trajectory that is going to benefit the entire country.
All right, 9 petitions, Wakili Edward Mureu, such a record, seeing it in the Supreme Court.
Yeah, thank you. But before I comment on that, let's first of all bring you warm greetings from the people of Gatanga. I told them I'm coming to the KBC for the first time as a member of parliament. They were excited and they told me, let me pass my warm regards to you.
Thank you.
Secondly, let me also take this opportunity to thank them for giving me an opportunity to serve them as a member of parliament under the UDA party. And we just want to also to reassure them that their choice was right. We are going to work hand in hand with them to ensure we deliver our promises and more so make this country much better than we found it as leaders. Coming to the matters before the courts, we just came back from our meetings with my team of lawyers. I also dab up as legal secretary, charge of legal affairs in the UDA party. So I've got many things which I'm juggling. With our team of close about 100 lawyers, we are just trying to make sure that we respond to each and every of those 9 petitions. But nevertheless, what I can just say is that this is unprecedented. Multi-party democracy in this country is now about 30 years, and we have grown. That we can be able to conduct our elections peacefully. We can be able to, the people who have won and the one who have lost, they can be able to ventilate their issues, not on the streets, but in the courts of law. I would say we have moved miles ahead. Number two, I also want to commend our courts, because over the years, the last two multi-party elections, especially under the 2010 Constitution, the Supreme Court has simplified the process of election in such a way that today we can be able to pinpoint and say, for you to be able to have a free, fair, and credible election, these are the pointers which you need to come up with. And I would say it has taken out of pain to get to where we are right now. And also happy that the public are very confident that the Supreme Court will be able to look at all those issues, ventilate on them, and make a very viable decision. Coming to the not necessarily the substance of those petitions, what I would like to say is that there's an element of what you call, especially coming from our competitors in Azimio, trying to do what you call drama, shock and awe. But unfortunately, what happens is that they are doing the shock and awe and doing the drama when the horse has already bolted. They should have done that before the election. And I'm finding it, because I've gone through all the petitions. I have seen all the issues. I've seen what they're asking for, but I'll tell you, it's just a chorus. Every petition is talking about the same things. The only difference are the parties, in particular the petitioners. Number two. Surprisingly.
Let me cut you short just a bit, Wakili, because at some point we'll talk about some of the substance in this petition, of course, without going the whole hog. But very quickly, taking you back, Wakili Mogaka, you correct me if I'm wrong, but even in the judgments you have had from the Supreme Court, never before have we had a Supreme Court now being asked to define the roles of the chairman of the IEBC as well as the other commissioners. And you were talking about jurisprudence earlier. Probably talk about the outcome of this election and how it will shape jurisprudence in future.
Thank you. The last petitions we heard of were dealing with electoral issues. Sadly, for these 2022 election petitions, we are faced with a situation where we have to deal with the conduct and management of an independent constitutional commission, which one would have expected that it would carry its mandate as a commission. But when we are being treated to a divided commission that is projecting results which are discordant, we are then now faced with a new issue, an unprecedented issue of the Supreme Court having to decide whether the results that have been announced were results of a commission or results of a commissioner. Whether a commissioner has a locus standi to announce unilateral results.
This time the chairperson of the commission.
Yes, the returning officer, because remember that the elections are conducted by the Independent Electoral Commission. And a commission is a commission, a chair and its commissioners. We have been treated to, I don't want to call it drama, it is a theater of the most absurd that we are having the majority members of a commission disowning a result, and then a chairman of that so-called commission, because it was not conducting itself as a commission, now purporting to issue a result. Then you know, the Supreme Court is now faced with a situation of having to decide, is this a result from the commission or is it a result from an individual? And I'm happy that the petitioners have this time gone straight ahead and named the commissioners as respondents individually to come and tell Kenyans what is it that they were doing in that commission. And it is really a very ridiculous thing. And remember, without going to the details of that, we have had this question about the IEBC and its quorum and the manner in which it should conduct elections, presenting itself severally before courts of law. At some point, we have been told that the commission had quorum to conduct other business, but not a referendum. And it therefore necessitated the filling in of the vacancies over that commission, so that you have a fully staffed and fully commissioned commission. Why were we doing that if one individual can stand up and say, this is the result, and go home? So these are new phenomena, very new developments.
Wakili, as we talk about the new phenomena, it's your legal position then that the fact that Chebukati, and allegedly with 2 commissioners on his side, and the CEO, the declaration of those results dents its credibility?
Oh, certainly, because the result was meant to be by the commission.
Okay.
And look at it. In a democracy, when we do an election, the majority have their way. Even in the courts, when you are dealing with a bench, the majority judges have their way. How about the IEBC? Will the majority now this time not have their way? Because we have 3 against 4.
Okay.
So really, even in the Supreme Court itself, we have 7, an odd number, and we expect that the majority decision will be the decision of the Supreme Court. How will we treat this absurdity from IEBC that we have 4 against 3? So it is a new question that indeed Kenya has to deal with, the Supreme Court has to deal with, and it is what I'm inviting all of us, notwithstanding our partisan positions about this election. It is a thing that as a nation we need to deal with and know how is it that we want our independent commissions to operate.
All right. I have a supplementary question for you, but let me just hear Wakili Mureu's views. Obviously, I would guess you have a different view in terms of the approach Wakili Mogaka has taken.
Yeah, Jacob, I'm a servant of the law, not feelings or reflection. And what I would like to say is this: I do feel I can just imagine what our competitors are going through. Number one, being the deep state, having all the resources, having all the systems, using the chiefs, and then suddenly you find that you don't have the numbers. And this is what we call the act of desperation, and I'll explain why. Section 87 of the Election Act clearly demonstrates the process of declaring a presidential election. And clearly it says that the chairman of the Electoral Commission is the returning officer of the presidential election. That role is not shared with anybody. Number 2, coming to the issue of the commission is not the commissioners, and that's what my competitors are having a problem with. They cannot be able to interpret that the commission is not about the 7 commissioners. No, the commission is from the T-girl down there all the way to the chairman.
But the commission minus commissioners cannot conduct these elections.
Let me finish. Okay. Let me finish.
All right.
Why am I saying that? I'm saying that because the presiding officer in my polling station in a primary school called Gadaini Primary School plays a key role. And remember, the KI case settled on what is a final document which the court and the IEBC is supposed to look at to determine the winner or the loser of an election. And clearly settled that it is Form 34A. 34A is signed at the polling center, that place called Gadaini in Gatanga. Now, it is the same 34A which is transmitted to Bomas of Kenya in its originality, which again is studied and verified by the commission. And the commission does not mean the commissioners again alone. It means the entire process, because remember there's the POs, there's the ROs, and all those plethora of employees who work under the command of the chairman. And therefore, to go to an extent trying to pull out a number of commissioners and tell them recant on what you have already been announcing the whole day. Now, when my good friend here talks about absurdity, that's a proper absurdity.
You're suggesting
but the
somebody called them to tell them.
But the law is this:
yes.
The person to declare the winner and the loser of a presidential election is not a collective role. And remember, if they went back to the plenary, those 7 commissioners, and agreed to say massage the numbers, massage the so at least for them to be able to achieve whatever desire they wanted, maybe they would have wanted to do it, and then a petition comes to go to court, the Supreme Court would have gone back to Form 34A and ask herself, 46,299 police stations, what were the numbers in each and every police station? And that's where lies the answer. The answer is not about the numbers of the commissioners. No. The number is about, 1, the 34A, number 2, the role of the chairman to make a declaration. Remember, the role does not end with just declaring. He has a role not only to write to the president, but also the Chief Justice who has won, and must also move to the next step to gazette the president-elect. So there is no anomaly in that space, and that's why I said, unfortunately, when I look at all those many petitions, for me, what's coming out, there's nothing new other than what everybody is reading in the newspapers. There's
something you say, Wakili, very quickly, because you mentioned to call the 4 commissioners and tell them to recant results they have announced for a whole day. You're saying that is what happened.
What I'm trying to say long and short is this.
Yes.
And I brought that so you can be able to see the element of absurdity. Until about, because I was in the Bombers of Kenya myself, for instance, 8 o'clock, until about 1 o'clock, all those commissioners were announcing the results, tallied and verified results as usual. It's when they went back to the plenary, that's when the hell broke loose. And that's when funds were called, and whatever happened. But remember, every action has a desired outcome. The desired outcome was to put, number 1, to throw the entire process in disarray. Unfortunately, they're trying to do so when the horse has already bolted. All 46,299 police centers, all were tallied. The only thing was remaining is to make a declaration.
Okay. Very interesting. I'll come back to you on another matter. But Wakili, as you respond to what Wakili Mureu has raised, a very quick one. Is it your legal standing or your position that the decision of 14.3 million Kenyans should be subjected to the plenary of 7 commissioners?
No. Well, call it plenary or whatever. The mandate of conducting an election is vested in IEBC. And IEBC is a commission, out of whom one of them is named as the presidential returning officer. And as 4 commissioners have already pronounced themselves, at the tail end of processing these election results, you and I know that the country was treated to a blackout. And certain things were happening away from camera and from everybody's view until a result is sprung on Kenyans shortly after 4 of the commission members have walked out and said they will not be privy to an opaque process that is unconstitutional. And they told Kenyans, to whom they are required to account, that this process has been bungled at the tail end of it, and we are not having any ownership of this result. And that is why I am saying, describing it, whether you call it plenary, whether you call it wherever, the results that you were being announced progressively reached a point where that was ceased. Kenyans were treated to a blackout. Kenyans were lied to that at 3 o'clock we are, giving you a result. and that result never came until near 6 p.m. So really, in a process that is required to be very transparent, don't you see a problem? Of course there is. And I want the respondents to eat humble pie and know that they have petitions to respond to. And telling us that, oh, we have seen there's nothing to reply, my friends, there are petitions to respond to. And they need to sit down and respond to those allegations blow by blow. But one thing we all Kenyans agree is that the process of concluding the presidential result was interrupted for unknown reasons. Kenyans were treated to a blackout. Certain things happened before eventually a result was given out. And just before, as my learned friend is indicating, that the petitioners are doing what they are doing when the horse has bolted, my answer to them is that if you hoped that by a declaration the horse has bolted and you are beyond reach, you may have to eat humble pie to know that Lady Justice will give Kenyans the results they posted at the polling stations and not the result one individual has elected to announce.
And of course we will know which horse has bolted and which one needs to be stopped probably on the 5th of September. But Wakili, I have a quick one for you because you obviously mentioned about whether plenary or not. But there's 7 commissioners. What would be for commissioners to come out and read out verified results? And they say they didn't have a problem with the verified results. They only had a problem with the final process, and that is of Form 34C. For a commissioner who has read these results since the verification began, what interest would you have to be looking at these results, and yet you have had access since verification started? In fact, Commissioner Masit, with an international media house interview, she said they are accessing the back end. You don't find that suspect?
Far from it. Because, Jacob, remember that what you are saying the commissioners were announcing at some point was discovered to be faulty. The results were discovered to have been manipulated, and what was being read was not agreeing with the record. And that is what necessitated the suspension of the broadcast of the results that were being progressively read. Doesn't that make you smell a rat? And that is when Kenyans were treated to a blackout. We do not know, as we stand or sit here, whether these erroneous results were the ones that culminated in the announcement that was made, or it is the correct result. And that alone is makes the announcement that was made suspect. Remember that a decision by Kenyans on who takes the executive position of this country is a very scientific process that starts from registration as a voter all the way until the correct results are brought to the tallying center in Bomas. But where at any point there is lack of transparency and things being done behind curtains, then that is reason to worry Kenyans. And I want to commend the commissioners who walked out of that kind of situation and told Kenyans that whatever is happening here is incorrect, is not right, is not transparent, and therefore we will not be associated with what has been announced here.
Wakili Mogaka talks about transparency. By the time of the declaration of results, obviously owing to the trend that had been set, that the results from constituencies are being read out by the commissioners, we had about 20 of them pending. And I think by the time Chebukati is declaring the results from the 20 pending ones had not been read out. Do you think by the time of reading those results, then you could say that the process was complete?
I was there at the Bomas of Kenya. And when the chairman said that he's going to make the announcement at 3 o'clock, he also confirmed that the process of tallying and verification is complete. And that is the time when they went back to the plenary and hell broke loose. Let me bring you the scenario. Because again, as I was a witness, I was in Bomas of Kenya. Kanchori, the chief agent, Saitabao, the chief agent of Raila Amolo Odinga, he started shouting 2 nights before that Bomas is a crime scene. When they went to the plenary to sign Form 34C, he declined to sign. Yet everybody else, including Majako, had signed, including Maore had signed, including the president-elect had signed. My point here is very simple. And by the way, it does not. These are not a nuclear science. You can be able to do 1 + 1. Remember, there is someone somewhere who wanted the chairman of IEBC to do his bidding. And it started with a story about the Venezuela. It started with a story about this returning officer from Embakasi. It started with this returning officer from Niger. Now, and you can be able to stitch all those issues and find out, number one, who is in charge of security? You know who he is. What has he said before about the candidate, the petitioner today, Raila Amolo Odinga? We know he's one of the chief campaigner. Go back. Those people who caused commotion in Bomas of Kenya, who has been apprehended? Yeah, but who has been apprehended? Nobody. Nobody. You can now be able to tie down the loose ends and find out, okay, it is a story being created toward a certain direction. But the point here is very simple. And I'm glad and happy that our competitors have acknowledged that we have grown and matured. I want to tell you this, Jacob. Among all those petitions, none of the petition is talking about Form 34A, because that's where everything starts and ends.
Gidongo says your party was altering them at night.
You can make all manner of allegations, yes. But remember, all those forms are in the portal. I'll be happy to hear that in this polling station, in this constituency, in this county, Form 34A was transmitted as in this form, but on the other end, it appears in the other form. Nobody has said that. That's number one. Number two, nobody has been pointed a finger on the president-elect, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, on his malpractice or anything. But for us, we have filed a suit. We are saying, whoever comes for equity must come with the clean hands. Whoever comes for justice must come with the clean hands. Section 10 of Election Fairness Act says a public officer cannot canvass or campaign for a candidate. But here we have civil servants who have been canvassing on behalf of Dr. in favor of Raila Amolo Odinga, and they have gone. And we also said the returning officer of the petitioner is the one who caused all those commotion in Bomas of Kenya. His boss has not castigated or even denied or even said, please do a bit of investigation. So we are saying he's a culprit to the crime. And therefore, we are saying, if you are looking for justice, please come with clean hands. You cannot taint the process and then come back. You cannot take out. You cannot bribe the commissioners and cause commotion in Bomas, and then on the other hand come back and say, oh, my votes have been stolen, or there's interference with the system. That is playing to the gallery. And for sure, I'm glad and happy that, remember, even the 6 judges are also voters. They're also asking the same questions which everybody's asking. And therefore, and since most of those rules which are right now, which are applying in this process, they are the ones who came up with it. Okay. I'm sure it's high time now they apply it just the way they had intended from day one.
All right. Wakili, there's some allegation made in this petition, the Raila Odinga petition, that some of the Forms 34A, that were transmitted into the IEBC portal are different in substance and form from the physical copies issued to Raila's agents, and that the IEBC system was corruptly manipulated. You attended the first meeting of Azimio elected leaders. your running mate candidate said they had access to the IEBC portal, accessed these forms, and they knew they were the winners. They were just waiting for the formal declaration. At what point then does Azimio realize that the IEBC portal is compromised, yet this is where they are downloading their forms to claim a win?
Thank you. I'm glad, Jacob, you have alluded to reference to Form 34AB when my co-parliamentarian says he has read the petitions and there is no reference to any form. I'm glad the facts speak for themselves. And I'm also glad that when we start knowing that who were at the crime scene, my colleague, parliamentary colleague here confirms that while he was nobody's agent, he was actually at Bomas, where we seem to have a problem. But to your question, remember in this election, the presidential candidates have agents in every polling station, in every constituency tallying center, and every candidate has the original forms from 34A, from 34B, which ultimately generate from 34C. So true to Azimio's observation, while the original forms that originated from the polling stations carry the correct results, the things that were being exhibited in the IEBC portal were clearly discrepant from
okay, let me cut you short.
originals.
Your running mate candidate does not talk about the forms from their agents. She talks about downloaded forms from the portal.
Precisely, that is why I am saying that the forms downloaded from the portal are discrepant from the originals that are held from the various agents.
But she was clear they had won from what they had downloaded from the IEBC portal.
And therefore, the only explanation to that was that there was interference and substitution of the forms transmitted through the KIMS kit to introduce counterfeit forms into the IEBC portal. And that is why you and I know that at some point, because the moment this automatic transmission is done, there is automatic update of the election results. Indeed, IEBC acknowledges that there was a problem with the transmission and their portal, and that is why they suspended the live or the real-time update of the results based on whatever has been transmitted into their portal. So that alone should tell you that clearly there was interference with the results that originated from the various polling stations, and that is why we are saying that if these interfered results were the basis of the pronouncement by the presidential returning officer, then obviously they are subject to scrutiny, subject to question, and that is why petitions have been put in good faith to tell Kenyans that, look, whoever is being declared or has been declared as so declared did not meet the requirement for declaration as such. And it's a very simple thing. And we are telling the intended respondents, this is a very simple matter. Put in your response, show us these forms, the basis of which this announcement has been made, and then the whole country will be at peace knowing that the person who has been pronounced as the president is actually legitimately elected as such. Okay. And if not, it is not too late to throw in the towel and say, sorry, we thought we would get away with this, and if we have been caught in the act, the better thing is to say, Kenyans, we submit ourselves to you, and if we have to go back to the polls, we go. Yeah, it's a very simple exercise.
Respond to that.
I will say this. Our competitors will hang with their own rope. How? They woke up and called all the elected leaders. And they came and they went short of declaring who has won. And clearly said, we have everything, every detail. on who is the winner. But we shall leave that mandate and the acknowledge to the chairman of IEBC. 2 days later, they have come and said, now we don't even know who has won. Now, my point here is very simple. We can try to do what you call shadow boxing, or you start playing the game of chairs. But the point here is this: if they had entire picture of who had won and who had lost on that election, the first paragraph in their petition, in the affidavits, is to annex that schedule and show us, the Kenyans, this is our original picture when we went to the press, when we called the leaders, when we went short of declaring ourselves. These are now the varied votes, or these are the form, that 4A, which has now been changed overnight. And then accompany that with an affidavit of the agents. I want to tell this, Jacob. In my constituency in Katanga, I did not see a single agent of Azimio Party. They didn't have. I didn't have. And let me tell you, that is a person who will come and countermand the position in the Form 34A to say, do you know this? Do you know this Form 34A? I do not know. Then you say that. If you don't know that 4A, why are you in that polling station? Yes, I was.
Do I need to have an agent so I can be awarded my correct number of votes?
You see, when the law says, if you allege, you must prove.
Okay.
And when you allege, then someone must come in and give validity of your claims. The only person who is supposed to do that is the agent. As otherwise, whenever there's an issue about whether the votes were 1,000 or 2,000, the person is supposed to come and say, this is my signature, I witness. And remember, it is a collective process whereby the PO and all the agents of the parties, including independent, sign that form A. So one cannot come from the A and say, I don't know, I'm not talking about those results, and yet everybody else is saying he does. The challenge here, and I think that we are trying to look for many issues. The challenge here is that our competitors, despite given a great opportunity, despite being carried by the government to win, they have squandered that opportunity. And they can't believe. Number two, after reading all those petitions, I'll tell you this, it's just a plethora of an NGO report. It's just allegation after allegation without an iota of evidence.
All right.
And why is that happening? Let me just finish, Jacob, it's very important. Why is that? Why they're doing that is because it is it's a commercial transaction. The campaigns has been funded by the state funds. The petition is being funded by the state funds. So the point is very simple. They are not feeling.
And Wakili, those allegations on this table.
Yes, and therefore they don't feel the pain. So they would be happy to continue with the music chairs because they are not bearing the cost. We know as much. The chiefs were given money to dish out. The DCs were given money to dish out in my constituency, and therefore they don't mind getting to a gravy train. Ask yourself, with all that money, how comes they don't have agents in the Katanga constituency?
All right, let me allow Wakili to respond to that because I see him itching over the same sentiments you've made. If I come back to you, Wakili, very quickly.
Thank you. I'm in shock, actually, that I'm sitting with a learned colleague who knows that allegations which have no evidence do not hold water. And this kind of smear campaign, I expected it from people who are less informed. But I'm glad that Wakili na Mheshimiwa has confirmed that in his constituency, the Azimio agent was excluded from the entire process, and he has confirmed
there was no agent or
that is what he has confirmed today, that whereas there were agents deployed, he has confirmed that when everything was happening in Katanga, there was no Azimio agent.
He didn't talk about exclusion.
Yes, and I'm saying the allegation that I know of is that Azimio agents were excluded from certain
how do you know that?
Polling stations, and listen to this, and this is what should worry you. And coincidentally, the polling stations such as Gatanga is one of those where there are more ballots cast for the presidential candidate than and none cast for other 5 candidates who were on the ballot. And therefore, clearly, that explains to you that where Azimio agents were excluded from, there were introductions of...
Who excluded them, Wakili?
That will be a question of the presiding officer for that polling station to explain. Because at the beginning of the exercise, polling agents for Azimio were present and reported at the polling stations. But when the exercise was happening at the tail end, allegedly, the Azimio agents were not present. Be it as it may.
Hold on a minute, because I know some of this has to be conversed in court.
Yes, and that's why I'm saying...
But tell us, of course, when you talk about exclusion, you must have some basic evidence.
Precisely, affidavits will come of that particular that particular thing. Okay. But that is not for here, and that is why I said I will not be one of those who will be floating allegations, just as my colleague is saying that chiefs were bribed. Really without evidence. Chiefs are known by names and the locations.
So have the ones who excluded their Azimio?
Yeah. So I don't know whether they paid the chiefs to do whatever they did. But be it as it may, and the most important thing for Kenyans, and really we need to engage in a very sober and informative discussion, is that very grave allegations have been raised in the Azimio petition. And it is important that the respondents take time and put their response on record. And once they have put them on record, I request that you invite now my learned colleague to come and do a discussion and debate with me based on the things they have responded.
Based on what they have responded.
For fear that they have no answers to those allegations, they will come and say, oh, there's nothing, yet. There are petitions, and if not responded to, are sufficient to nullify the presidential election. So they had better take those petitions extremely seriously. If for nothing else, when presidential aspirant Kigame as an independent candidate was excluded by IEBC, a person with a disability, excluded from contesting, which is his constitutional right, and then you say that that is a frivolous petition, then I really don't know which country we live in.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Talking about, because the IEBC has been named as a respondent as well as Wafula Chebukati, but of course there is a mention of a KPMG report, and you saw what it had: double registration, others using fictitious identity cards to register. But you also know, Wakili, because you've had questions being raised about Smartmatic company that provided technology for this election, and the kind of record it has in terms of elections elsewhere. Obviously, that is not in your domain because it is the IEBC that will be responding to those things. But as a person who is interested in this and has been named as a respondent, you don't think that this concerns around the voters register, the technology provided in this election, and the conduct of a chairperson throughout the process is something that also dents the credibility of this election?
Jacob, I told you our competitors have a lot to explain to their principal, the chairman of Azimio. Despite given the resources, they have not delivered the desired results. And therefore, they will need to clench on every straw. KPMG has nothing to do with election and the end results. KPMG was an audit, and what happens with an audit? And they've raised it in their petition. What happens in an audit? An audit query raises a certain number of things and says, improve on 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, what happens is that once an auditor gives a report, it's upon the client to now attend to those issues. But when you took the raw report, and which KPMG did, and then throw it as something to help you on in the, because the question is, what is the nexus between the report and the results. And what IEBC did, and that's like any other company, is that there are certain recommendations that are made in terms of clean up the register, make sure that they give people an opportunity to go and verify whether they are registered, putting those numbers, putting your name as a voter in the portal in such a way that you can quickly be able to go to your phone and verify that whether you are a registered voter. That is unprecedented in this country. That's never happened. And that is one of the recommendations made by KPMG. I said, you may throw all manner of things. An auditor has nothing to do with voting and transmission. It's purely a management issue, which IEBC has handled. And just to repeat again, our competitor have a serious issue of telling their principal, their chairman, with all these resources.
Which resources are these?
With all the resources, with all the money in the world, with the deep state, with the system, you can't be able to beat this guy, a hustler, whom we have closed all the taps of money, and threw all their supporters to jail, and they threw KRA and CID and whatever. How comes I tied this guy's hands? You have not able to give it to throw him a single jab. How comes? They have a lot to explain.
Quite an interesting one, but you've not responded about mathematics, because there's even the question of the Venezuelans who came into the country. Obviously, that is a story for another day, but talk about the technology and some of the questions raised in other jurisdictions about the credibility of this technology company.
I said generally, I said, look,
okay,
these are tools which enables IEBC to deliver results. I'm not an IT person, but...
So what if they're compromised?
The point is this. And remember, the exception I told you, over the last two general elections, the presidential petitions, the Supreme Court has prepared a jurisdiction, and as a result of that jurisprudence, and as a result of that jurisprudence, the Parliament has made a number of legislation, changes certain rules. Number one, that from 34A is a basic document to establish the process of voting. Is a basic document whereby if you want to vote an election, you must first of all start with Form 34A. Now, our competitors have not shown that the Form 34A, which was scanned and taken to bombers from Gadaine polling station, Laira had 20, Ruto had 1,000. The numbers have changed when the transmission was made at bombers. That's a role which I said here, and my brother here appeared to mambo jab about agents, because the only person who can countermand the original which was signed is the agent who signed that form. But here, and I'm trying to say long and short, there is not even Kanchori himself, the chief agent of Raila Amolo Odinga, has not done any affidavit to countermand.
Quite an interesting one. Wakili, obviously, as you respond to it, and I'm looking at time because I'm almost running out of time, don't you find it interesting that during that meeting you had, and of course the other meeting addressed by now the presidential candidate for Azimio, said that this was our victory, stolen. Then in court, the petition says there was no outright winner. There's nobody who gets past the 50% plus one mark. That is no kind of contradiction?
Yeah, it depends on what one is listening to. And Jacob, and for the sake of viewers, let us appreciate that the petitions that have been put before court raise very fundamental issues. And one of them is the one I've just told you, that while in certain regions of this country, elections have been postponed for those regions to get prepared, we have had a situation where a person with a disability seeking to contest for the presidency has been excluded for whatever reason. And the question we have to decide here, was this election proper, transparent, and fair to every candidate who presented themselves to do? The answer is yours. We have a petitioner called Khalif, who has brought in a petition showing numbers that indicate that a person who has been declared president has not met the 50+1 constitutional threshold for him to have been so declared. We have other petitioners who are raising other issues regarding the interference with the system that processed these elections, and therefore showing that indeed there was actually no election. And I want us, as we engage, to disabuse ourselves from the Raila Ruto issue and focus on whether this election was conducted properly, because that then would be good for Kenya, because it really doesn't matter whether this result is upheld. Whether or not the result is upheld, we are saying that the Supreme Court needs to pronounce itself. What is the fate of an election such as this that has excluded a presidential candidate, perhaps for reason only that he hails from a certain region where if he contested, he would have, earned certain votes and therefore affected another candidate's vote. Is this then really an election Kenyans we need to pride about? All we are saying is that presidential and other elections in this country, it should be given the seriousness it deserves. Okay. And we need that those who organize these elections disabuse themselves from any interest and present to Kenyans all the candidates who have sought to run for their elections, and to treat each candidate equally. If in other areas we have not conducted elections, what was so big about the presidential election? If Kigame was not included in the presidential ballot, it would have been postponed for a month so that every candidate is given a fair chance.
All right, Wakili, you have 1 minute and a half to respond and make your closing remarks.
Thank you. Again, just to help my colleague and my learned friend.
I need no help. Say your case.
In terms of just to understand this scenario, the reason why Raila did not perform is because the people, the candidates of Azimio, refused to carry him with him, to go with him. How? In central Kenya, in the mountain, not a single candidate put Raila picture anywhere. Nobody. That's number one. Number two, not a single candidate who called for a meeting or to campaign for him. And that to me, I'm trying to point to my friend where the challenge is. They didn't campaign for Raila Amolo Odinga. My final remarks are this. I want to thank the people of Mount Kenya because they have honored what our leader Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta said, yangu 10 na yako 10. That's a debt which they have paid for generations to come. Okay. They have given us honor and dignity as the people of the mountain, that they have ensured that whatever promise we made, and today the people of the mountain are respected because they keep their word. Okay. And finally, I want to thank the people of Gatanga for entrusting me with this job, member of parliament. We've conversed, we have discussed, I know their issues, and I promise them I'll deliver, God being with us.
All right. Thank you very much, Wakili. You have your 1 minute to respond.
1 minute.
Very quickly.
I will only thank KBC for finding it fit that I also be part of this show. And thank viewers for viewing KBC. And indicate to them that as a lawyer and now a legislator, we are sufficiently responsible to know that this country is bigger than anyone else, and that on the elections that we have just concluded, we want to assure Kenyans that once a matter has been placed before the Supreme Court, it is in the best hands possible, and we will let the Supreme Court speak about it. Right. And very finally, I cannot shower more praises and thanks to my electorate in West Mugrango, and assure them that every day, every hour, everywhere, I shall lift their flag high. and high.
Absolutely.
God bless
And of
you.
course, we'll wait for the responses by Wakili Mureu's team. You had 4 days from yesterday. We'll wait to see the responses. Also, again, from the IEBC. And then the D-Day is Monday. After the pre-trial conference, obviously see how different parties canvass these issues. But thank you very much, Wakili Edward Mureu, from the singing constituency of Gatanga in Muranga County.
Yes.
And Wakili Mogaka from West Mugirango. And I wish you all the best as you serve the next 5 years. Thursday is your induction day. All the best. Thank you very much. This is where we put a cap on Kenya Decides. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. We continue with our coverage of the Supreme Court, obviously beginning tomorrow, and also again the swearing in of governors that happens on Thursday. We have a 24-hour coverage on the same. Have yourself a good night. God bless.
The only way I can keep you alive is by taking your eyes from you to give to her.
You'll marry her in heaven?
Right. I want the whole world to know that she's